This episode is brought to you by Denver Urban Gardens. Denver Urban Gardens is the largest independent network of food-producing gardens in the country. The Denver Urban Gardens steward 200 community gardens and 24 food forests in the Denver metro. Making a gift to Denver Urban Gardens means supporting their mission to provide the skills, access, and resources for people to grow their own fresh and healthy food for themselves and their families. Your support makes Denver a healthier, greener city. You can donate now at dug.org/donate. That's dug.org/donate. Today on CityCast Denver, it's time to hear from you, our dear listeners. Producer Paul Caroli and I are opening up the mailbag and responding to your thoughts and questions about everything from Colorado's big push for geothermal energy, the best and worst places to ride a bike, and what Ezra Klein's abundance agenda could mean for Denver's housing market. Today is Wednesday, April 9th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Producer Paul Caroli, hello.
Hey, good morning, Bree.
So we got a little something fun to do today. We get a lot of response through the CityCast Denver email and through our hotline, and we wanted to kind of do a mailbag episode. Also, welcome back. I guess I should say, Paul, you've been gone for a while.
Thanks for having me back. This is kind of a weird thing to do. First thing in the morning on my first day back from vacation, but I'm ready.
Why don't we just start? We ran an episode last week, I believe, and it was actually a previous conversation that we had with a bike courier named Matt Sanchez, who was just really lovely to talk to about the state of sort of biking in Denver. He does it for work, but obviously he also does it because he loves it. And I really enjoyed that conversation. I don't know about you.
I think Matt's interesting because whenever we talk about transit and we talk about bike infrastructure, the voices that you hear are the advocates. And you hear about people who are who think about urbanism and think about biking as transportation. But for Matt, he has a very different perspective on it, but he bikes every day and he knows the streets like no one else.
But we heard some great stuff from listeners in response to that conversation. I'm going to read a text we got from Amy M. in Denver. I thoroughly enjoyed your conversation with Matt Sanchez about biking in Denver. I agree wholeheartedly on the Platte Trail, north and south, Stout, Champa, MLK, and Cherry Creek as the best routes in town. Also, Brighton Boulevard and Rhino and getting around downtown is fantastic. I'm a leisurely
rider. Can we stop
rider.
there, actually?
Yeah.
The bike lane on Brighton Boulevard, I was biking on that recently, and there is a point where the bike lane goes up on the sidewalk, and there are two cement slabs that are not joined perfectly together, and there is a gap that is just about the size of a bike tire, and I took a major spill on Brighton Boulevard, and so I got a bit of a gripe with that particular piece of bike infrastructure, actually.
Oof. I was going to say, though, that was the perfect street to put bike infrastructure on because it didn't even have sidewalks before they did that. So there was it was kind of a fresh place to start. But
I think every street's the perfect street to put bike infrastructure on.
Well, let's continue with what Amy said. She said, I'm a leisurely rider and won't mess with traffic on Broadway, but glad they added that lane. In North Denver, we have the 39th Avenue Greenway, which is more leisure than commuter, but still really great. North-South is a challenge in places, but we do have Williams in North Denver and Garfield south of Colfax, which work in those spots. Thanks for a delightful episode. It makes me excited for getting back on my bike this season.
Hell yes. Nice. Amy M., thanks for writing in.
Producer Olivia, do you want to share a voicemail that we got from Travis in Capitol Hill?
Hi, this is Travis from Cap Hill. I wanted to talk about how atrocious it is to get around downtown by bike. Downtown is a place that would make the most sense for a lot of bike infrastructure, but it's somewhere that, to me, when I try to bike down there, feels like we have the least. So I'd like to see downtown get better for cycling. Thanks, bye.
Hey, thanks for calling in, Travis. That's a great comment. Downtown, I think, has gotten a lot better in the last couple of years, personally.
How so?
Well, there's some new protected bike lanes. 17th has been quite good. And it didn't used to be. I do still think there are some problem spots. Like one of my least favorite places to ride in the city is, it's not even just ride. It's just this one particular block. Like on 15th, there is a protected bike lane, but then once you get down near to I think it's Market Larimer, the protected bike lane ends, and then some sheros show up and they point you to the other side of the street because the protected bike lane is on the left, but then you're supposed to swerve somehow through 3 lanes of traffic into the bike lane on the right side of the street within a block. And every time I do that, I feel like I'm taking my life into my hands. That is one of the most dangerous spots in the city, at least like in terms of my perception when I'm on my bike.
That always makes me wonder if the folks that are working on the designs have actually rode the path themselves to experience that.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I understood why that happened. I'm sure there's some explanation for it. I'm sure it was like they built one piece and then 10 years later they built another piece and it was like, okay, well, this made sense for this particular district and this made sense for this particular district. And it's kind of like systems built on top of each other.
Yeah, I can see that being a struggle, especially as they're like adding, like you said, every like decade or so, changing something up. But okay, well, let's move on to another set of comments we got from a different conversation. A couple weeks ago, we had Lisa Calderon on the Friday News Roundup. And let's just read this comment from Reddit from P. Figgy Pudding.
P. Figgy Pudding, regular commenter. Shout out to P. Figgy Pudding. Love you.
Well, this is addressed to you, Paul.
Okay.
I challenge Paul to name one place that is a libertarian success story. If he wants less regulation, less public management of social issues like homelessness, he should have to point to one place that has ever, in all caps, worked out. Because the only place I can think of like that have been lost to history due to mismanagement, boom and bust cycles, and populist revolutions. Places like the U.S. in the 20s and 30s, places like Chicago, where stories like Upton Sinclair's The Jungle occurred. No thanks, I don't want sawdust in my sausages. Like the Midwest in the 30s, where the Dust Bowl happened. Places like the Wild West, where towns like Gilman, Colorado died after unregulated corporations poisoned the very soil and water the community needed to remain in existence. And then in all caps, I'm getting really tired of hearing all this libertarian takes. All his libertarian takes go completely unquestioned and unchallenged from this show. Paul,
interesting comment from P. Figgy Pudding.
There you go.
Well, number one, I don't accept any labels. I don't think of myself as a libertarian or anything else except a journalist. The only thing I care about is the truth. If I'm putting an idea out there, it's like I did in that episode. It was just for discussion. You know, I think this abundance agenda thing that Ezra Klein is pushing is really, really interesting, both in terms of the national political conversation, but also for cities and how we're discussing what to do about, you know, all sorts of things post-pandemic, how to come out of the pandemic stronger and faster. And Denver, especially after we had this, 10 years of a booming economy and now this sluggish bounce back after the pandemic. I think these are the kinds of discussions people want to have and people are having. Like, it's about priorities. Like what programs are worth funding, what programs are not worth funding, what regulations need to be reassessed. And then the whole point that Ezra Klein makes is, he's trying to reorient Democrats and liberals to start thinking about outcomes instead of process. So that was what I was hoping to discuss with Lisa Calderon and with anyone else who wants to. I still think it's very interesting and relevant, is like, how do we in Denver reorient our policy discussions around outcomes?
Well, there was a reply from someone else on Reddit, sort of, I think, digging into what you're talking about. This reply from Frazrock. He did a bad job.
Can I actually respond to one more piece of that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Success is such a squishy word in this context. Success story. I challenge Paul to name one place that is a libertarian success story. What success for who? Every regulation has winners and losers. That's how you regulate an economy. You put a rule in place, one person's going to benefit from it, one person's not going to benefit for it. So it's like, that's how I think about it. I don't think about it as like, this is the right answer and we should do it. It's just like, you're never going to hear that from me. I'm more interested in who are the winners, who are the losers. If we press this lever, what happens? What are the impacts? What are the knock-on effects? So like, I don't think of anything as like a black or white situation. It's all a spectrum. It's all a gray area. And how do individuals navigate that? How do we as a city navigate that? That's how I think about things.
Well, and another commenter from Reddit replied to this this comment, and said I think he's talking about you, Paul,
I think so too.
Did a bad job of explaining the abundance agenda. A better argument would be that the city should be reducing barriers to building homeless shelters and affordable housing so there can be much more opportunity for people to find a place to live. Abundance agenda is not about reducing social services as much as it is about creating society where everyone has access to basic necessities because government is encouraging building and manufacturing. So
I think that person's exactly right. I think I was conflating these two things. I've read more of the book. I've heard a few more of the interviews that Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson, his co-author, have done, and they don't talk about cutting social services. It is the opposite. This person's totally right. I did make a mistake when I conflated those two things. I was trying to put all these things into one conversation about priorities, and I think I unintentionally ascribed the proposal of cutting social services to those guys. I don't think that's what they're talking about. They're definitely talking more about lifting regulations, unleashing the power of business and innovation to grow the economy, to create more prosperity for all. That's absolutely the abundance agenda.
Interesting.
Yeah. Are you interested in that at all? Have you followed any of that?
I have. I feel like I have to read the book before I can say anything because I'm skeptical on the top of anything that seems like it has a massive solution for something that we've been struggling with for a long time. And I have a lot of thoughts about the free market nature of building and these ideas. I don't know. I need to read the book. I don't think I can say anything until I've read the book. I don't think it's fair to take that because I'm just skeptical.
Yeah, in some ways it's new. In some ways it's like really old. It's just kind of like rebranded YIMBY stuff. Like it's kind of the same conversation we've had in Denver for so long. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's like, I've heard this before. I worked in planning. The YIMBY conversation is complicated to me, but I just worry about representation too and voices.
100%. I tried to book Ezra and Derek on our show. You know this. We've been working on this. I wanted them to come. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen. But one of my questions was, you two are nerdy white guys. Why does it feel like the only people who are interested in these ideas are nerdy white guys?
Yeah.
Why isn't this a diverse coalition who are on board for this? Honest question.
And that's been a conversation for the YIMBY crowd, I think, for a long time, at least for me. The lack of diversity at least the representation of YIMBY that I've seen in Denver and in bigger spaces when we're talking about this conversation around affordable housing is it is very white and tends to be upper middle class and folks that aren't necessarily dealing with the challenges that people who are looking for affordable housing might be dealing with on a daily basis. And as a person that did community outreach and urban planning for 4 years, I saw who had power and who didn't, who made decisions and who didn't. And that's my biggest concern is there have been housing advocates for a long time concerned about things like gentrification that can come with building. And there's just a lack of nuance in that conversation. And so, I like I said, I'd have to read the book to see how they approach that part of the problem.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a ton of that nuance in their discussion. I think we have that nuance here in Denver and on our show a lot. I think we talk about this in a million different ways. Like the housing conversation, the density conversation. I mean, maybe Denver is more advanced in this than other cities. I don't know. But I feel like we do this. We talk about this. We talk about gentrification versus displacement. We talk about growth versus, cost of living. We talk about these things.
This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon. Pine Melon is a unique local grocery delivery service. Think of it as the Colorado Farmers Market delivered. Besides just supporting local farmers and businesses, Pine Melon is also helping the environment. Each of their delivery vans keeps 50 cars off the street, and their returnable and reusable delivery boxes save 5,000 grocery bags every single week. This spring, Pine Melon is asking Denverites to make a pledge to support local food just once a month, and they're going to make it super easy for you. First-time customers get 75% off your first order. Just use the code CityCast. When you choose food that's grown, raised, and crafted right here in Colorado, you're choosing to protect the environment, improve your health, and help your community thrive. Whether you're getting some fresh produce delivered or the ingredients to make your favorite cookie recipe, it's cool to know you're making a difference. Visit pinemelon.com or download the app and use our coupon code CityCast to get started with 75% off. That's pinemelon.com and use the code CityCast to get 75% off. This This episode is sponsored by Visit Port Aransas. Just off the Texas coast sits a unique beach town marked with salty vibes and sun-soaked memories. Port Aransas is a place where family traditions unfold naturally, and beauty lies both in island views and the unhurried moments between adventures. It's a place where multiple generations can get together under one roof to share slow beachfront mornings and cool Gulf breeze evenings. An island escape with 18 miles of shoreline to cast your line, kayak with the kids, or simply cruise the coast in a golf cart. My ideal vacation is sitting on a beach, reading a magazine. I love long-form journalism under the sun. One visit and you'll see why so many have anchored their traditions to the island life. Trade mountain peaks for 18 miles of uninterrupted shoreline with an easy flight to Port Aransas, Texas. Go to visitportaransas.com and plan your visit. That's visitportaransas.com. Well, we have some less serious topics here. Paul, would you like to read this email because it's addressed to me, or I can read it?
Sure, absolutely. This is an email from Oliver. Hi, Bree. As a boy who grew up in the 90s, super jealous of my sister's Polly Pocket toys, I can confirm that Mighty Max is the eBay vintage toy search term you might be looking for. And as a parent of a 3-year-old boy whose favorite toy is an Elphaba doll I bought him, I say, let him play with Polly, but wanted you to know there were options. Do you want to fill me in on the background here?
Yeah. So last week we were talking about all sorts of things around gender on the Friday show with Lucas Brady Woods in relationship to some legislation protecting trans folks, and sort of the conversation just evolved into conversations about gender. And I shared that my son has a collection of Polly Pockets because they're these perfect compact toys, and I always get him one before we go on a trip, so he has something to play with on the airplane. But I was saying there's like no boy Polly Pockets. They're very girl coded. Like all the characters are girls. They're pink, they're purple, and he doesn't care because he's 3. But I was like, it's dumb that they have to be gendered because this is such a cool idea for a toy. So this person told me all about Mighty Max, which I don't remember.
I'm gonna Google Mighty Max. I never heard of this.
Okay, it's awesome. Looks
like it's a TV show.
I looked at these like boy Polly Pockets, and they're like skulls and snakes and like slimy things, and again, weird that it's gendered, but I have a dear friend, Uncle Thad, who is an eBay connoisseur, and I am going to put him on this mission to find his nephew some Mighty Max toys, because these are awesome.
Fun. This is such a crazy world for parents to try to figure out what to do. The whole gender question. I mean, I guess everyone answers it for themselves, but like, I don't know.
You can like try to not, and it just like happens. You know what I mean? And like what I was saying on the show too was I worry about the day that someone tells my son that his toys are girly. Then he won't like them. But right now, nobody has introduced that idea to him. So he doesn't really know that this toy could be considered, quote, girly. I mean, he loves the Barbie movie. He loves Ken. He has Barbie pajamas. But I do wonder when that moment comes. But I love this option, at least, to have another type of Polly Pocket toy, whether it's for boys or girls, you know?
Yeah, sounds cool.
Okay, let's move on to another topic, geothermal energy. This was a show that you did, Paul, with Parker Yamasaki and Tracy Ross from the Colorado Sun. We have a voicemail from Ryan in Congress Park.
Hi, this is Ryan from Congress Park. I'm calling in response to the geothermal episode that was a week or 2 ago. So I'm very excited to hear it make the episode. Geothermal is something I've worked on in the last couple of years and I'm very excited about. Kind of disappointed in the episode. It really framed, a huge clean energy potential in our state as something that's really a NIMBY issue, like bike lanes, saying, I don't want to have to deal with the sight of ugly painted lines. And I don't care if, bicyclists get killed on that. Or, the false equivalency kind of thing is, I think, harmful for having, good conversations about how do we get our economy off oil and gas. I think something that would have been great to mention in the podcast is last summer we had a Iceland, Colorado Clean Energy Summit. And we had the ambassador to Iceland here who brought their expertise and some engineers and a delegation to really encourage and support the development of geothermal in Colorado. They were excited. Not only that, they went up to Buena Vista to meet with opponents of the Princeton Hot Springs, and did such a good job of meeting and showing empathy and care for the community and answering questions. They were able to really completely turn around the opposition into support for the project. Blue Lagoon has been around forever. And even on the show, you were surprised that, you couldn't even hear it, or you didn't even know that there was a geothermal plant. So I think to insinuate that these plants are going to be, monsters and behemoths, instead of looking at, this could be a great solution to take one of the top oil and gas producing economies in the country and bring that workforce and that knowledge and companies in the oil and gas industry into becoming champions and support a transition to renewable energy.
This is so cool and really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for calling in, Ryan.
This is like Ryan's the kind of person I want to run into at a cocktail party, because I want to learn this knowledge from somebody who's like deeply passionate about it, which is also what I love about our listeners. And I feel like I recall from the articles they talked about some of this work in Iceland, those folks coming to Colorado, but I don't know if I understood the depth of that connection that happened here in Colorado. So that's really interesting to know.
Yeah, I didn't know that happened from the episode. I talking to Parker and Tracy, but that is cool. I mean, I wish I knew about that. I mean, I want to address the YIMBY comment from Ryan at the beginning. I mean, this is the kind of thing where, like, us in the media, and me particularly, we love drama. That's what we're looking for. You'd find the drama as a way in to try to explore an issue like this. But I think I, and probably a lot of our listeners who heard that episode, came away thinking the same way Ryan does, that this whole conflict that I saw initially that attracted me to this, me being someone who loves hot springs and was worried about them, doesn't seem like it's that big of a conflict at all. It seems like there is a lot of compromise or possibility to work together. And it's not really a zero-sum game the way it may have seemed. Although the Blue Lagoon in Iceland, I did learn something about this. Parker and Tracy told me after we finished recording. Apparently, and I do think this might matter to some people, but apparently that famous hot spring, the Blue Lagoon, yes, it has a geothermal plant right next door that apparently you can't see. It's not that obstructive. But I think all of the water in the Blue Lagoon is like recycled water from the geothermal plant.
Oh.
So it's not like natural from the source.
Spring water.
It's secondary. Now, I guess that doesn't matter to a lot of people, but I bet to some people that probably does matter. I think that probably changes the experience.
It does not sound as appetizing, relaxing. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah,
I
there's
agree.
something
It does
about
sound
it.
a little.
Yeah,
something weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I just have to say that the reporting from Parker and Tracy was the first time I personally had ever heard of this type of energy. Of course, I've enjoyed hot springs growing up here my whole life. I didn't know about it as another source of energy. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of folks might have also just been learning about this for the first time. Okay, let's move on to our next topic. It's Jeanette Vizguera. This is from a Tuesday News Roundup I actually did while you were gone, Paul, with our friend Megan Ululani Boyanton from the Denver Post. This is an email from Sean. It's very long.
Do you want me to read this one? You can respond to it?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so this is an email from Sean. Sean writes, I'm writing about Tuesday's episode regarding Jeanette Vizguera. It was a short discussion about her deportation hearing, and although there was a brief mention of the, quote, complicated history of her case, there was also a comparison made to the students that have been detained under this administration's harsh immigration policies. I believe this comparison is an injustice to the students who are being detained, as the two cases couldn't be more dissimilar. Jeanette Vizguera has been in the country illegally for decades, with multiple deportation orders having been issued, the first two being in 2011 and 2013 under Obama. Without getting into the weeds over opinions on that legality, it is a drastically different situation than students with visas being detained and scheduled for deportation. People can disagree over the policies, but she was charged, a judge heard her case, and determined her eligible for deportation. I've lived in Denver for 15 plus years and have been a registered Democrat my entire life and have never voted for anyone other than a liberal candidate in any election, national or local. As someone who was excited to find a podcast discussing local news and politics, I'm beginning to feel as left out of my party as a more moderate Republican might feel after the GOP has been dragged so far right. I feel as though there are many Democrats, liberals in the city who have comparatively moderate viewpoints compared to those that get brought up more often in various forms of media, CityCast included. Although this may come off as a criticism, I feel as though a platform like CityCast, focusing on local stories, has the prime opportunity to get into those more nuanced discussions and viewpoints. A few weeks ago, an article regarding Visguera was posted to our Denver Reddit thread, and I was surprised to see dozens and dozens of comments from people who agreed or had no problem with the deportation efforts. And they all made it a point to let people know that they consider themselves liberals or Democrats. This made me feel as though I was not alone.
Well, I think I will address first. I can't speak to how this person feels, right, about how they're being represented in the media or in Denver otherwise. But I will speak to the top part of this. I do agree. I think that it is a false equivalency to put Jeanette's case up against the students with visas being revoked. I think at least from my approach, the conversation has just been, this is what's happening in each moment. And this is all under the guise of this mass deportation conversation. So that, to me, is kind of probably where I was lumping it all together. I would also say we didn't get into the details of the Jeanette Visguera case because we have talked about it so much that re-explaining the entire thing from like 2009 or whatever was not something I was trying to do with Megan. It was more just trying to catch up on where that case was in the moment when I talked to Megan. So that was the reason that we didn't talk about exactly what happened with her. But yeah, I totally agree. I don't think that these are the same kinds of things. And I think that these stories deserve more nuance in the conversation around why folks are being deported and what the situation is for them each specifically, because it is very different. So I hear that.
Yeah, I feel like this distinction is like really, really important to people on the right now, where there is a divide on the Republican side over what types of immigration are, what they want and what types they don't want. Because the Elon, Vivek, Ramaswamy types of Republicans are interested in the more like educated immigrants, student visas, those kinds of things, because they're, the tech companies rely on folks like that immigrating to the United States to work for those companies. Whereas other kinds of immigrants, and the other side of the party, like they just want nobody to come in.
Right.
It seems like.
Well, I think we're going to continue, obviously, to be having this conversation. We've been talking about Jeanette Visguera's case for, oh my gosh, I feel like almost a decade now. So,
can we talk about this broader point, though? This
Sure.
point about liberals, like how moderate Democrats, he seems to be saying that like he thinks that moderate liberals in Denver are okay with deportations of criminals. It seems like that's the Polis perspective, the Governor Polis perspective. What do you think?
That's what they think.
Yeah.
I get. I have such a different experience in the Democratic world here in Denver, where I'm seeing something in my more far left corner that looks nothing like this. So.
What about the centrists, though? Do you think that the centrist liberals in Denver support deporting immigrants who are people who came illegally that are criminals?
I have no clue. According to this person, the Reddit thread said yes. I don't know these people, so I'm not sure. I can't say I've ever had that conversation with a Democrat. So
we should.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, there's dozens of people out there that feel that way too. So interesting.
Well, maybe anonymous commenters, astroturfing.
I mean,
Russian bots.
You know how I feel about comments in general, so I don't know. I'm not the right person to ask.
I love the commenters.
I know you do.
Thanks for commenting, everybody.
Well, this was fun, Paul. I'm so glad that this was so nice to check in and hear from our listeners.
Yeah, it's nice to be back. Thanks for calling in, everybody. And you can call in, write us anytime. You can email us, denver@citycast.fm, or leave us a voicemail or text at 720-500-5418. Tell us anything. Tell us what's on your mind. Tell us what we got wrong. Tell us what we got right. Send us compliments. 720-500-5418.
Thanks, Paul.
See you next time.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell the creators of Mighty Max about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you later. Tell the creators of Mighty Max about us and to start producing new Mighty Maxes so they're not $52 on eBay.